Well, happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to another episode, a random episode of the Unfiltered Historian Presents Unfiltered Conversations. We have a very special episode tonight because we have with us one of our newest members of the Unfiltered Historian. That is Daryl Noonan. Hey, welcome to the show. This is, I believe, your first appearance on the show, actually.
It is.
Man, it is so good to have you. We have heard some tremendous news from you today, so I just want to open the show with a first welcoming you to the Unfiltered Historian with your first live show with us. And just tonight's, again, one of those random, unfiltered, unstructured shows where we're just going to talk some shit and be here and communicate with you guys and just have some fun. It's a Tuesday night. It's not a random Saturday or Sunday like we normally do. But we've been wanting to do some more of these during the week and just trying to continue with the content, if you will, on what we produce here at the Unfiltered Historian. And Daryl has graciously decided to join us tonight. So without further ado, let him introduce himself and tell him a little bit about himself. And I will turn our weird, calming, relaxing music off. I got to change that to some like hype metal music one day. Because one day we had some dolphins that sounded very provocative at one point. And Darren and myself have off-stream joked and said some funny things about the Dolphins, and one day maybe we'll make that public. But for now, that's an inside joke with the Unfiltered group, and I'll tell you once we go off live about that joke. But again, without further ado, Daryl, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and just kind of what brings you to the Unfiltered.
Name's Daryl Noonan. Live in Fredericksburg. Lived here since moved into the area 2016. Retired Marine. Combat vet Iraq, got 3 daughters, one of whom today received a acceptance letter for the Virginia Military Institute. So very college, very much ties in with Fredericksburg and just war in general. We actually went down there on Veterans Day because they do. So funny thing, Veterans Day is also the anniversary of the college being founded. It was founded in 1839. So we went down there with a friend of ours who he's on my Civil War competition team in the NSSA. We went down there and they do a big parade and everything. Got to see some of the sites. Got to see Robert E. Lee's tomb and all that. So it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you went over to Washington and Lee, I imagine, obviously, to see that.
Yeah, we walked through it, but we didn't really go around that. We were focused on VMI. What's funny is my cousin, he lives up by Tyson's Corner area.
Okay.
His 2 sons are actually there now. One's going through his rat year, what would be his freshman year of college, and then his older son is on year 2, so he is a 3rd year.
Okay,
I think that's what it's called.
Awesome. Well, I mean, just the prestige of going to VMI alone has such an allure to it, and that, I mean, again, as a dad, you must be like tremendously happy and excited right now, and I can only imagine the excitement behind. So
because
congratulations,
college. Man. So just that she got accepted.
Neither did I.
Awesome.
So, and I hope the same for mine one day too. I mean, of course, I have an 8-month-old, so she's nowhere near college yet. But I'm already thinking like, might be a great thing to push.
I want to send her to?
Yeah, which one? Because definitely, and as a dad, that's one thing I think about is like, what can I do to make her have a better future than I had? Not that this isn't great, because between you and myself and my friends here watching tonight, I am living a dream by doing what I'm doing today and talking to all these folks and having friends like you on here and be able to just have the opportunity to have a platform like this without the schooling that many people require to start talking history and studying like we do. For example, I haven't even served in the military, so you have even an upper hand in the ball game there, because I don't have the military experience even to be talking some of the jargon I speak. and I wanted to serve for a long time and didn't have that opportunity, but to pass that on to our children and have them have much more opportunities than we do
Oh yeah,
is huge for me too. So like I definitely want to help her and succeed in that way in any way possible. So like I can understand, again, with an 8-month old it's a little different. We're working on what TV program I'm going to let her see first, and which is going to be the most educational and stuff of that nature. But still,
which toy
either
does
way,
she want for Christmas?
I'm already looking at so many different things. I
God,
found, and I
yeah.
work at Target in my spare time, so like my second job, I'm working there, and I'm like, I'm only doing that because Christmas presents are significantly cheaper when you have that 20% discount at
Oh yeah,
Target.
yeah. My
But
oldest worked at the. Oh, you're talking the one off of Carl D.
no, actually, I'm working over at the one in South Point.
Oh,
The,
okay.
the
I know what you're talking.
super Target. I guess
Yeah.
we're different because we have a produce department. That makes us
Ooh.
different. Ooh, and that's where I
Wow.
work.
It's all
Coincidentally,
Asian.
I'm in produce, which is cool. I'm throwing salads at the wall and putting them in the places they're supposed to go. And it's I don't want to say a brainless job because the people there are fantastic and
It's
very
mind
smart.
numbing.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many zucchinis and cucumbers I put into the proper place today. I'm just like, this is what I've got to do all day. Like, this is it. Okay, cool. I've done a
Yeah.
lot worse. I'm at a high school during the day, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but a challenge in itself because
Oh
we're
yeah.
here trying to educate other folks. And that to me is the most rewarding and fulfilling part of my day. But now I have a whole week off of school, so all I'm doing is playing with
Oh
produce
yeah.
all
I
day. And I'm just
forgot.
like,
Yeah, that
mm-hmm.
everyone's off for the whole week down there.
Right, and I'm
Because
even like I took it this week. I'm not even reading a Civil War or history book this week. As crazy as that sounds,
you're
I'm working
okay.
on. Yes, I'm okay. Once a year, I read novels. All right, once
I
a
try
year.
and mix it up. I have like 8 books, and I try and
Right,
have at least one that's nonfiction, or one that
exactly.
is fiction, I should say.
So upon the anniversary of the 11/22/63 assassination, I'm actually reading Stephen King's 11/22/63,
I don't think I've
which
ever read that.
I posted I didn't expect this to go viral, but I've made my first viral Facebook post ever.
Nice.
And I'm sad because I'm like, damn, I post a nonfiction book to Facebook and it goes viral in this book club. But I post any of my Civil War books and any of the studies I'm doing, and it almost goes. But no, this one, I mean, when I mean like there's 200 comments and answers, there's
Oh,
like
nice.
500 plus likes and whatever. I'm not going to consider that viral. I'm also being very facetious when I say viral. But upon reading this and understanding it, apparently everybody says that this is Stephen King's best book, even over some of his older stuff,
Wow.
which shocked me because I'm like, I've heard his older stuff is tremendous. Because I even picked up The Shining and Doctor Sleep, which are the two books that go, kind of in order with each other. And
Yeah.
obviously, I read 11/22/63. I started reading because it's almost 1,000 pages. I started that first, and man, it's amazing. It's about this guy that um, finds that in a diner there's a closet that leads you back into the 1950s. So he's as soon as you walk into this closet, you end up in
Oh, so it's tied
1958.
to the Kennedy.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, I'm trying. I'm thinking
Right.
11/22,
So
1863. I'm like, what assassination
right
happened
now,
then?
1963. So this guy jumps in the closet of this diner of his friend who had rapidly gained lung cancer within 2 minutes, and it's in his world. He jumps into this time world and he may be gone for 3 years, but when he comes back in our world and their world is 2016. It's only been 2 minutes since he's moved from 1958 and 63 until 2016, which
Oh
is
wow.
interesting. So it's a different take on Stephen King because Stephen King normally writes straight up horror
Yeah,
and
straight horror.
right. But this is time travel and messing with history and the butterfly effect on history. And the guy that has him go into the closet says, I am dying of cancer. I need you to go back in time and stop the Kennedy assassination.
I,
I
you
need you to
know,
find out if Oswald's the killer or not. And if he is, shoot him dead when you can. And dude, is this book throwing me
I
through a
think
loop?
I don't
I'm
know.
loving it. Like honestly, the
So
best nonfiction I've read so far, and I'm not even 200 pages in, and I'm already like, oh my god, is this the best book I've ever read when it comes to nonfiction? Quite possibly the best book I've ever read. I don't want to say that just yet, but hands down, nonfiction. And I'm again only 200 out of 800 something pages in. I am hooked on this book.
I was the same way. Like when I was younger and I first read it, I couldn't put that book down.
I
And
need to buy that.
that's
I'm
a
yeah. It's a big one. Yeah, like
it
the
is,
stand
and
too. I have the stand and I haven't read that
I
yet.
couldn't put it down as a kid because it was just so good.
So you've read Stephen King and probably can understand that this is you understand what I'm going through is my first
Well,
Stephen King induction. Like
yeah,
this is the first
yeah,
one,
it's
and
and like
again that book
he's
goes
had some
with
books that are okay, but yeah, like it some of them just suck you in, and yeah, you can't put them down.
well, this is definitely one of them, and I will have to pass this along to you if you find the time for a nonfiction read here
Yeah,
soon. Like you'll have to check it out because it's the history is amazing because what I think King does in this one, and for historians like us, we're gonna like it because he's using this, before the turn of the century when we come to the 21st century, he's using all these references and different types of lifestyles that were taking place in the 1950s and 60s, and he's using those for the synopsis of this book, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Like I feel like I'm reading it's almost like a Jeff Shara book, but it's time travel, so it's
mhm,
obviously different. But
yeah.
Stephen King does so well writing that type of history into a time travel book, and I'm just like, man, I have no words right now. This is a fantastic book, and I'm gonna have to just suck it up and finish it. I can't touch another book until I finish this one, which
Yeah,
is it's crazy because I'm normally always military history, strictly military history, but I
you
do allow
got to mix
myself.
it up, or you'll lose your. You otherwise you'll burn out. Like
That's what I was starting to get to. I
that's
felt
what I
burnt
do.
out.
Is like I've got books from all the main wars that the United States has been. That's and like World War II for the longest time was my focus. Anything I could get my hands on, and then I've read, then for a while Vietnam, and then now I
I've
ping
got a
pong back
stack
and
this big of
forth.
Vietnam right now too, because as soon
Yeah,
as I finish Fredericksburg, I'm going back into my Nom stuff. But
I've got my great tablet that
that's right.
has
See, I need to
as
get one of
much.
those because the
I'm telling
allocation
you,
of
it is
space is
yes.
a problem.
So let's see. I'll tell you. I have.
I'm finding out now. I'm like, I don't even have a bookshelf in my apartment yet, and I'm seeing this stack of books just grow
This
and grow and grow, and they're not
this
even books that I'm
book.
buying. It's just the ones that I'm bringing
Oh
here
yeah.
from my old place steadily. It's just like, oh man, I need to do something here, and
If I
Kindle
had
might
the
be.
amount of books I have on this, so I have a micro SD card that's 128 gig. I have 110 gig of books on it. That would fill my house.
Oh
I
yeah,
would not have any. I would be like, you know,
yeah, rightfully so.
everywhere. Oh,
Now I looked, by the way, since you and I went to this, and we'll talk about this tonight too, because I really want to recap our visit to Fredericksburg because
hmm
that was a eye opener. And Noel Harrison has sent me so many things that I can't wait to share with you,
oh
just
yeah.
about that itself. But your U.S. regular books is selling for close to $398
Okay.
right now, cheapest,
Funny
and I'm
thing.
upset by that. I'm like,
No, no, don't worry, don't worry. So I haven't talked to you since we really did our walk. So I reached out to the author of it. Found his email because it's
oh,
listed on Amazon, and I was like, "Hey, is there
pricey.
any chance of your book getting republished?" And guess who? They just happened to do the books on the War of the Rebellion and are now in talks to release that next year of his Savis Beatty.
Oh man.
I was like, yes,
Well, they're gonna take some more dollars from
yeah,
me, I
I
guess.
will buy that book because that's
One
one I
hundred
want put on the
percent.
bookshelf.
And for our friend Darren, he is a reenactor of the U.S. regulars, actually. Oh, speaking of NSSA, are you familiar with
Yes,
the Berdan guys there at all?
yes,
One of my teachers at school, Dr. Doblix, is one of the members and the co-founders of the Berdan's second U.S. sharpshooters, and he approached me at school because he found out you and I were shooting those Cohen mortars, and he's like, "Well, if you ever want to come shoot with us and commingle groups, let me know because I would love to try to mix it to and just like." He's found me a Zouave rifle for $350.
you know what's funny about that is that's what I was going to let you use until you decide to take what you wanted to get.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of getting is because I would like to start. I mean, now I have an ancestor. I just joined the Sons of Union Veterans this week and went to my first meeting with Tim because Tim is one of the the group leaders of this.
mhm.
And I'm in love already. I'm just like, wow, I can finally honor my Union ancestor because I've got like 19 something Confederate ancestors, not including the two that are very famous. But when we go down the lines, I've just so many ancestors that were in the Confederates, but I only have two that were in the Union Army. Now, the two that I have in the Union Army happen to be the closest when it comes to direct descendants. It's
Mm.
again at 26, I boggle a lot of folks' minds when I say this. My great grandfather, not great great, not great 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 great. When I literally say great grandfather, was in the first United States sharpshooters out of Albany, New York.
Wow.
My great granduncle, his brother, served alongside him in the first United States sharpshooters.
Was he
And
really, really young?
my dad passed away at 61 years old in 2010. Dad
So then
being born in
his
48,
dad's dad.
fought in the Civil War. I am
Wow.
literally two handshakes away from the Civil War. Isn't that
That's
crazy?
crazy.
Right. And most people I know that are almost, I don't want to say on their deathbed, but like old, way, way, way older than me, have a great great grandfather. So to be 26 with a great grandfather is like almost a fucking time paradox. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's just so crazy to think that.
Yeah, and let me think. Yeah, because I mean, you think about it,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to, you know.
My grandfather was born in 1900. That's crazy. He served
Oh,
in World War One. Darn it! And a
yeah,
cool story
that's
about that too that I've never shared. He actually gets kicked off the French front because he lies about his age, runs away from home, and his mother happens to be good friend. My grandma is great friends with a congressman who writes to none other than the congressman. The congressman reaches out to what this is something recently. I found out we have a telegram in our family that's being passed to me, signed by none other than Pershing.
nice.
Right?
That's cool.
To kick his ass out of the army and bring him back to the States to his mother. And I happen to now have my hands on the rifle he stole from his dad and took to the World War One, and
That's
went
cool.
with him as a secondary. It's a Winchester 22 of all things,
Hmm.
but that was his sidearm. So there's pictures of him smoking cigarettes in France with his Enfield and a 22 Winchester on the other side of his arm. So instead of a handgun, this guy's carrying a Winchester 22 and the army issue rifle on his other arm,
Hmm.
which is badass to me. I'm like, this
Yeah.
guy's like double fisting some rifles. So hey, like my grandfather was pretty cool in
You gotta
that
show me
regard.
that picture sometime.
I will. He was in Belleau Wood, so he got to serve briefly, which bless him for being in Belleau Wood because that was absolute and utter hell for
Oh
Marines and
yeah.
Army alike. But just to have that interesting story, so it's not those typical he stayed, he was with AEF the entire time. He's kicked out of the military within like months of serving in France. He gets to make it through boot camp or whatever quick program they
Yeah,
had for
their
the
boot
AEF,
camp back then wasn't a boot
expedited.
camp like we know.
Right. But just to have that story is so unique, and that's what I like about it. And he's not a coward, he's not a deserter by any means. He's just too young to serve, and gets caught in that lie of being too young. And I don't consider that dishonorable. I consider that honestly very honorable
Yeah.
because he's so eager to serve his country that he's going to fake his age and rob his childhood of the experiences he's supposed to have. I mean, he's 17 at the time. I believe it, maybe even 16 when he actually signs the paper, but which is also not uncommon. We look at those British expeditionary guys, like those guys that are running off in England, who are like, "Oh, are you 18? No, I'm 16. Now try again. Are you 18? Yeah, I'm 18. Okay, you
Well,
can serve."
wasn't it Shelby Foote who got kicked out of the military? I can't remember. It wasn't Ed Bears. Ed Bears got wounded, if I remember correctly.
Suicide Creek. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Very seriously too.
Um, but there was a Civil War historian, someone that kind of gets some um, video play. I don't remember. I can't think of who it was. It might have been, like I said, I think it might have been Shelby Foote. He might have been in the army, but I remember. I want to say he was in the Pacific, and he got either he was too young or something like that, where he got kicked out. Um, just
I'd have to look into that. I don't know if it was Shelby Foot or not, but that would be really
I
cool to
can't
find out.
remember who it was. A well-known Civil War historian, though.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's it like? So I'm reading. What's it? Let me look at the name of the book because it
Sure.
is. It's a good book. It sucked me in. It's Seizing Destiny: The Army of the Potomac's Valley Force.
Yes, sir. That is a
You gotta read it.
fantastic book. I
It's
have read it many.
okay.
Actually, so funny story about that. Chris, obviously, you know, is a good friend of mine, so I
Yeah.
have the book signed by him. Al Connor's wife is a good friend of mine as well, Jane Connor,
Okay.
and knows my stepfather very well. My stepfather works for the Stafford County government and knows Jane very well, as of course. So I have the rest of Jane's books. Jane writes books too, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Lincoln and Stafford, Saint Sins and Sinners, or something of that nature, and another book about Government Island that she wrote. That is all three of those fantastic books too, especially if you're into local history like you and myself. She signed that in Al's memory. Unfortunately, that was Al's last book. He passed, or only
Oh.
book. He was a VMI grad too, very big scholarship donor of VMI
Hmm.
as well. I never got to meet Al personally, but I worked with Jane Connor multiple times at Chatham when I was still an intern. So me and Jane would always talk, and she was just the most supportive. Is she's still around?
Yeah.
She's the greatest woman that I've met when it comes to Civil War history. That I, like I said, I've had the personal run-in with.
Hmm.
So I happened to have Seizing Destiny one day. I didn't know she was working with me, and it was the first day that I met her. And she saw that I was reading that, and she teary eyed too. She, that's my husband's book, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you serious right now?" And we've been schmoozing it up about my stepdad knowing her, and she knows some of my family, and it's just familiar with us. She's like, "Can I write you a note in that book?" And I was like, "I would be beyond honored if
Oh
you could
yeah.
do something like that." So I have the first edition signed by Jane Connor in Al's memory and Chris Mikowski in Jane's memory, or
I'm.
Al's memory, excuse me. And it is a fantastic book about the Army of the Potomac, and Al
It
writes
is.
fantastic stuff because it's something new. One of my favorite books on the Civil War is actually called Confederate Supply, and it also is one of those books, sort of like our U.S. Regulars book, that's up there. And now I
Yeah.
have the first edition without even a picture on the cover, like paper bound college press book. And I was gifted that by a friend in Chickamauga when I went down there for the tour
Nice.
that me and Joe LaFleur went to with
Yeah.
Dave Powell. And he was getting rid of some of his shelf life. He's like, "Look, this book is rare as absolute hell, and I want to give it to you because you seem to be a promising historian." Now that obviously made my head go because I'm like, I'm not really. I'm a young 24-year-old at the time, but to have that and read that and then have something like Seizing Destiny, which really mimics that in a very fantastic way, that talks about the supply issues that are happening, and they really go into detail just about like some of the this things you would never consider with the Union Army, the Potomac, in this time
Well,
of the year.
there's one my friend just put me onto it. I actually have it on my tablet. I just haven't read it yet. It's called Civil War Logistics.
That would
Um,
be is it Earl Hess?
yes, it is. I
He's
haven't read it
fantastic
yet,
author.
but now I'm. He was because we were talking about Civil War logistics. Like he's a big Western theater guy, and so me and a friend of mine, Doug Oates, always give him hell because nothing of significance happened east of the Appalachians. I mean, I'm sorry, west of the Appalachians. He always likes to say east, but
Oh, some
well,
significant stuff happened here. Let me tell
well,
you.
so I joke, and he can't deny it. It's like last week, we played that Scourge of War game,
Which
and
I'm loving, by the way. I've been playing solo
oh,
just until I
oh,
can,
it's so fun.
rent and all these bills cost me an arm and a leg, so I
It
haven't even
is
been able to buy a book recently.
it is such a fun game,
I
but
can't wait to play with you guys.
he talks crap on the Army of the Potomac and everything, and it's all friendly banter. Like
Of
Doug
course,
is a big
Doug Oakes.
hardcore guy. Yeah,
Oh, I love his comments on our page because he's
yeah.
definitely. I can tell he's a smart
Yeah,
aleck
Doug
too.
is
I
a
love it.
great guy. It's smart as
Good.
hell. But he'll yeah, that it was Shelby Foot. I knew it was. I just couldn't remember what service branch it was in.
Captain Shelby Foote, United States Army, was court-martialed and
Yep.
discharged for falsification of government documents. Kojak, we can always rely on you for your fantastic expertise. I'm telling you, he needs to be a part of this organization too because he just provides us with some of the best stuff ever.
But
Kojak, I hope you are well tonight down in Florida. Let us know how them Seminole Wars are going because we'd love to hear your information on that. He is our Seminole War
oh,
expert for
nice.
sure. Oh yeah, and he visits during the ECW symposium. He comes up here a lot. So hopefully next year when we go to that, I'm hoping you go too.
Yeah, I might be able to.
We get to have a drink with him at Strangeways because he joins us at Strangeways after the events and has a drink or two. We've also went to lunch together last time, so I want you to definitely meet Kojak and
Oh yeah.
commingle with him because
What
he's
was funny
fantastic.
is, you know, he asked, "Hey, are we going to play tonight?" I'm like, "Is the Army of Tennessee inferior to the Army of Northern Virginia?" And he didn't. And he's a Western guy, and he didn't notice that I didn't include the, because if I said Army of the Tennessee, I'm now talking about the Union Army. If I say Army of Tennessee, I'm talking about the Confederate Army. So,
Right.
but and he was like, "Oh, you got me." But
The Lightning won against two, Kojak, because if it's the Capitals, me not happy. So I'm happy that they won, but let's find out who they won against first. I haven't checked the schedule to see who they're playing, so I need to know who they won against. We'll find out in a second because I know he'll respond. If it's the Capitals, you got a fluke there.
Flyers.
Okay, that's awesome because they're Pennsylvania. Anybody Pennsylvania can get beat by anybody. And matter of fact, as funny as this might be, the Tampa Bay Lightning is my second favorite team, so long as they're not playing Washington.
So my parents live just outside of Tampa. They live
Yeah,
just east of Tampa in Valrico, which is, oh, by the way, right next to Brandon, where the Governor DeSantis just did that big rally, and someone put a thing over the sign that said like "Let's go, Brandon." My brother drove by it and
yeah,
saw it and was laughing. He said
that's ironic.
I must have laughed for 20 minutes.
That's
That
funny.
someone put a "Let's go" on top of the Brandon sign. So
That's funny. Yeah, that
it is what it is.
Florida's an interesting place. I'll tell you that.
It
My
is.
aunt lives there, and bless her heart, and she lives down in. She's a teacher too, which is awesome too. I hope she's proud of that. I haven't really got to speak to her much since I started teaching because she's so busy with her teaching stuff
Oh,
too.
I'm
But I don't
sure.
even think I've told her like, "Hey, I'm teaching too now." Like, it's an amazing thing. I'm a teacher and I work at Target, so I've had a busy life, like trying to balance my historian career and my Target career. Which honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, out of all the side jobs I've had, Target is the coolest job I've had when it comes to a side job. Like,
Really?
absolutely, yeah. They care about you. They respect your schedule. Number one, so like the Unfiltered presents in December, all the events we're doing, they gave me those days off today because
Nice.
I told them it's for my podcast, and they were like, "Well, we'll find somebody to cover you then." I was like, "Are
That's
you
cool. One
serious?" I was
off of
like, "Sheets was the most horrible place I've ever worked in my life, and I will echo that forever because
every
it was
place is different. Like my daughter, oldest daughter, worked at the Target off of Carl D, and she didn't like it there.
no." And see, I can see that. Yeah, and they close for Thanksgiving too. I
Yep.
got Thanksgiving off of work, and I'm only working 7 a.m. to 3:30. Now I work produce on Black Friday. First of all, we're not slashing prices in produce, so I don't got to worry about anybody coming to buy a head of lettuce for 99 cents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to
Yep.
be an easy day come produce for that. But and that's the cool thing I like about it too is that the guys that work in produce are also podcasters. So I found friends immediately coming in that they do sports podcasts. And one of the guys I do has a girlfriend that actually does sports history podcast. So I was like, wait a minute.
Cool.
There's a chance for all of us to commingle and start doing stuff. So you guys be in the lookout soon for some sports and history combining
Are
into
you going to
some.
start discussing how Doubleday created baseball?
It might be in the works, man. We might be talking some Civil War baseball, but it's just I want to also branch out. Like the Unfiltered Historian, I don't. When we've talked about this, we don't just strictly cover Civil War.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's like our main draw here, and that's sort of what we like focus on. But to have a versatile podcast platform to where we can bring so many different aspects of history and just Americana, if you will, that's really what we focus on here. That's why I love you'll never see me on a podcast without an American flag wrapped around my neck in some way, shape, or form, whether it's gray tone or it's, red, white, and blue.
Mhm.
That's what we do. We focus on American military history. And we also have UK history. We talk about dumping tea in the harbor
I'm going to
and
have to give Darren a hard time. Oh man, that's gonna be
He
fun.
knows it already. He's already said. He said, "You bastards are going to give me the hell." Like we are.
You
I even told
lying
him too. Yeah.
bastard!
I told him I was like, if you give me any shit while you're down here, I will take tea bags and I will throw them in the Rappahannock
I
right next
heard
to
that.
me.
I was cracking
Yeah,
up.
I will throw them straight into the Rappahannock because these darn Union guys came into Fredericksburg and threw all our tobacco in the harbor, believe it or not. So we have stories about that on the 13th. I'm going to tell you guys a lot about the bales and bales and bales of tobacco that's just dumped into the Rappahannock by the Confederates. And most of them set it on fire in the town,
Well, you know what's
which must have been
funny?
heartbreaking for them because myself, I like tobacco. It's not a bad commodity. I mean, cigars and pipe tobacco. That sounds great. But to watch all that burn on Sophia Street would rightfully piss me off because I'm like, hey, that's revenue for Virginia. That's taxes. That's good stuff I could be putting in my pipe right now. He talked about age. I like this comment of grandfather. My father was born in 1890 and my grandfather was born in 1854.
Wow.
Yeah, no, my grandfather was born in 1900, so I don't have you beat there, sir.
Yeah.
I've got a grandfather from 1900, but my great grandfather was born in like 1840 something. So, I'm not even gonna begin to entertain when your great grandfather was born because you definitely have me beat there. I'm sure with the dates you've got. But imagine just still like it's the uniqueness of being 26 and having that close of a relation to the Civil War, which makes
Mhm.
and this is a discovery I found last year. I didn't know this until 2020. And what got me so propelled into the Civil War is because I thought I was so close with a great great grandfather, and now I know I've got a
Yeah.
great
Now you're
grandfather
just
that's
even closer.
yeah, just and I'm already like whacked out into the Civil War, but this just exponentially propelled me further along into the war. Excuse me, and I'm honored to have that, and I'm honored to be able to be in an organization that Sons of Union Veterans, NSSA, stuff like that. That
Mhm.
just honor these things. And I've met so many friends, even at the school I teach at, that are involved in what we do at NSSA, and I'm like, wow, this is the life, man. Like it can't get any better than this. And then 2022, I'm speaking in a couple different states as far as Ohio as of right now, and that's what I've dreamed of doing my entire life and being able not for selfish reasons either, but it's to meet other folks and talk to other people from different parts of the United States about history and just have that conversation and allow that door to be opened
Oh
and
yeah.
to know that that's happening and
I'm an
my friend.
introvert unless you are talking about some of the sub. It's like that kind of standoffish guy. But you talk to me about subjects I like or I have interest in. We just became best friends,
Absolutely, and that's how you and I
like
hit off. We
stepbrothers.
literally was like it took 2 seconds for me and you to talk at the
Oh yeah.
symposium, and we already knew right then and there. It was like that. That's it.
Well, and I was just thinking about it. We were talking. You were talking earlier about Fredericksburg and the tea, and what people. So everyone knows Winchester was occupied. I think like 78 times. It changed hands.
It's just like on a dime. It
Fredericksburg
flipped
changed hands.
three
What,
times.
four? So
No, four. Yeah, you'd be right. Four
so
times because in
think about it.
1864, it's back in Union control.
McDowell
Lee.
in
Mhm.
May of 1862.
Yep.
Then let's see. So then, and while his corps that got held from going down to the peninsula um, to reinforce McClellan. Then after Lee and Jackson and Longstreet beat McClellan on the peninsula, then began the uh, Second Manassas campaign, where they slid around and everything like that. So they pulled out the night. I was telling you about. I dug some bullets that the guy I was with said he thought they were from the Ninth Corps when from Fredericksburg,
Hmm.
the second, the first battle. I
Right.
was like, I don't think these are because one, they were 54 caliber.
And they're
Uh,
non-fired, right?
yeah, no,
Drop
they have
rounds.
gunpowder in the back end of it. Next time we get on, I'll grab one and you can see
Please
it. I'll
do.
hold it up to the
Yeah.
camera. You can see it. There's no doubt, but the thing about it was, I was like, no, these, because he thought, he was like, well, from the report I read, it was talking about how they were disposing these before they moved out of the area. And I was like, well, then it wasn't Fredericksburg, the Battle of Fredericksburg. This was the summer of 1862 when they abandoned Fredericksburg because Aquia Creek was um, Union supply depot then as well. They pulled out. It was all abandoned. Anything that was there was destroyed or disposed of. The whole Second Manassas campaign happens, and then you go into the Maryland campaign. Then again, the armies come back down. So then now you're talking Burnside and the first Battle of Fredericksburg. So Fredericksburg is occupied then. Then you have a short, we'll call it a short little occupation of Fredericksburg in May of 1863, under Sedgwick. And then obviously, once the post Gettysburg and then into the Overland campaign, um, Fredericksburg was again occupied because for a while, especially during, me and you have talked about, Spotsylvania Courthouse, casualties were getting uh, put in ambulance and sent through Fredericksburg, loaded up on the
Right.
rail lines, run to Quiet Creek, and then run
Belle
up to
Plaine.
DC. Yeah, Belle Plaine, and run up to
Hmm.
DC from there.
They
The
were.
hospitals up at there. So that's, I mean, that's four times. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have nothing on Winchester, but it does. It's pretty significant when you
It
think about
is indeed. And we had, I think, aside from the hospital experiences in Fredericksburg, we had a unique experience, walking through the town there and
it.
doing
Oh
the
yeah, it
swale
was
stuff,
cool.
which I have to bring you back to Fredericksburg soon because, of course, I get told immediately as we leave that there are three city right of ways and I've seen them
I know
myself
you told me.
now,
I
Daryl.
heard you talking to Darren about those. I definitely
Yes,
want to
I
see those.
know. I'm a little upset that we didn't think about it, but if we walked a little further down Little Page towards that 7-Eleven, which we passed too and didn't even think about it, there's some grassy areas to the left of where we walk that are actually part of the city that are, again, alleyways. But according to some of the historians around the area, those are still replicative of the
Hmm.
size and diameters of the swale.
Well,
And
yeah,
they're grass too. They're still part of the
they
battlefield
haven't
because they
been
haven't been
developed. Yeah.
developed. That's right. So these little tiny skimpy alleyways, and I looked at it from my car. I slowed down a couple times because when I go home from my high school, when I'm teaching during the day, I pass these swales and I look, and I mean they are fucking significant when it comes to what we laid in.
Oh yeah.
So there, now that I know I'm not going to get hit by a car, we don't need spotters on either side because we're not going to get run over. Because I'm not going to lie, folks, I laid in the middle of freaking
That was
busy.
funny. It was one of those.
Backpack
Okay.
on and everything. I was like, Daryl, can you watch it? Make sure I don't die. I'm dropping down in the middle of the road real quick. That alone was a hell of an experience because I just it putting yourself in the swale. And that's the first time I've done that and seeing part of the stone wall up there, just seeing where Marie's Heights was in proximity, it was bone chilling to the
Oh yeah.
max. But to be
So,
able to do that on the actual swale in the fairgrounds, closer to the stone wall, much closer than I was, man, I'm ready. Like I am just then I'm saving it for the 13th. I want that to be captured on live stream when we do
so
that.
when
Not
we go back out there, so I won't be. I'll be in California for the live stream, and then because of work. But
right.
either before or after, we can go out and again on my tablet. I have. So I knew I had it. I have the maps of Fredericksburg in a Kindle file.
Ooh. Now I have two copies of it too. So we have one that belongs to the Unfiltered Historian because little do we know, we now have an Unfiltered Historian library for all of us to access hard
Oh,
copy
nice.
books. Yeah, I've gotten multiples of both books or
Well,
both. I mean,
I've got a couple.
Yep.
books I could donate to the cause. And
Okay, perfect. We
um,
have a copy of Frank's book. We have George Rabel's Fredericksburg so far. We have Maps of Fredericksburg, and we have a few others kind of floating in limbo right now. But we do have now an unfiltered library that any of you guys have access to if you ever need to borrow or do whatever. We're trying to. I want to put a library together for all of us to use and utilize when we do these tours, so that we have
oh,
something that's a little. And they're beaten up, of course, for that reason, because these are books we want to bring out to the field with us and use real time in whatever, if we're doing live or just a walk.
well, I was
But
looking through that.
yes, maps are on the Kindle. Perfect idea.
Well, I was looking through it again, and I was actually rather annoyed. So, when we were out there and we were comparing the the regular division book with its little map to what was in there, and I was actually going through and reading the blurbs that go along with it, and again, and it's not the fault of the historians because, as we've talked, there's not much written on the regulars, but
Right.
that you even read the writing next to the maps, and it really says that the regulars didn't really do anything. And I kind of got, I was, my love of the regulars. Oh, I got a little perturbed by that. I'm like, no, that's rather inaccurate. I also had to, if you need a funny chuckle, I was reading something about Fredericksburg on the poor man's history website, Wikipedia, and and again I caught it. There was a little blurb where it said, "Oh, the Fifth Corps did this, but the regular division really wasn't engaged." And I had to go in and edit it. I was like, "No, that's not right." And so I went in and I just a little, little change. Hey, this is what they did. They arrived on the field as it was getting dark, and then were laying in the field all the next day and was engaged actually heavily on the 12th.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. And like I said, those are one of the most, these memorable moments that I can take away from the battlefield is when I get to walk with my good buddies. Like, they're like, we had such a good time just
that
walking
was
too.
a
Because
good
like, we
time.
got to
I
conversate,
had
we
a
had some
blast.
fun. We went and saw some of the coolest freaking people in the world when we went to the cemetery. And that just made for even a
Yeah,
better
that
day.
was
Because
that
like
was really
we
cool.
deviated from our initial plan and walked all the way to the Fredericksburg City Cemetery. But the best part, I think, was finding that damn tannery.
Yeah, that was really
That
so.
was so
Again,
cool.
I reached out to the author, and when I reached out to the author, I was like, "Hey, we were actually able to, based on your book, locate where the tannery was." And he's like, "Oh, thanks. I'd love to." I think he had seen the area via maps, but he wasn't able to actually walk on the ground. Then you sent me that link about the Her Camp.
Thanks to Noel. Noel got us
Yeah,
hooked up with all that, and he's one
and
of our most dedicated viewers in the world.
I
I'm telling
sent
you, I
that to
hear from
him,
him
and he's like,
daily.
"Man, I wish I had had that." When I wrote that book, obviously a lot of this stuff wasn't as well known. Um, there wasn't as much interest in, like, for example, Fredericksburg as a whole. Everyone loves Gettysburg, which, again,
Of
don't get me
course, I
wrong,
understand
Gettysburg's
it's the
great.
Mecca, it's the pilgrimage we must
Gettysburg's great,
take.
but there's other battlefields that are
There
just
are
as important.
Gettysburg, and I hate to say this to my Gettysburgians, but it just doesn't have anything on Fredericksburg. Fredericksburg is so unique. It
Yeah.
is so different. And that's why I love it, because it's not I get the allure difference. You go to Gettysburg and it looks 1863 in some places, but you go to Fredericksburg and it looks 2021. Looks 2022. It's adapting to its time. It doesn't look like a Civil War battlefield, but that's also what makes it a Civil War battlefield, because during the Civil War, it's the most unconventional as fuck, as I call it. I really want to get that bumper sticker on my car. I want to patent that, because that's definitely Fredericksburg, because that's it. I mean, it's not, it's an urban combat
And you can
situation.
still go back to certain parts of the battle. Obviously, when you're in downtown Fredericksburg, you don't get that feel. But you go down to the
Mm-mm.
Slaughter Pens or Prospect Hill, and
It's
it's like any other well preserved battlefield. Now, granted, where
right.
Meade attacked through is no longer an open field, you know, but parts of it are that you can still see that type of thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like Slaughter Pen Farm is absolutely unique in its own right too. Because you go down to this battlefield and you're standing where Pelham has zeroed
Yeah.
in some artillery and literally delayed the Union assault by almost 2 hours. You
Hmm.
see Gibbon's assault, 5 separate Medal of Honors handed out in that field. And I've heard some people say that it's handed out like candy at those times.
Well,
I don't think so. I think Slaughter
well,
Pen Farm, there's 5 deserved Medal of Honor
oh, yeah. So
recipients in
the
that
thing about
field.
the Medal of Honor back then, that was the only award for bravery. Not to take anything away
I
from,
think there should have been more than 5, but
well, yeah,
just me,
but
especially at Sunken Road. Where the
you
hell are
think
the Medal of Honors at the Sunken Road?
think
Damn it,
about what the
those boys.
requirements were for most Civil War Medals of Honor. You had to capture an enemy stand of colors. Well, that colors
And these
is
boys
the
did it.
regiment's identity. They're going to fight to the death to protect that flag. So that if you were
Without a
actually
doubt.
able to grab them, yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
And I think it's the greatest example of terrain differences in any battlefield you may
Oh
go
yeah.
to today. Because, like I said, and I love Nathan. It's not a shot at you, but don't think ever bad when I say this. But like I tell you, you used and had the verbiage I look for when I take somebody there. It's a flat piece of ground, and then we got to the railroad. He's like, "Holy shit,
Oh yeah.
this isn't flat anymore."
Well,
Toto, we're not in Kansas.
it's
No, we're not.
not, but it's
We are not.
not a direct. I look at the Fredericksburg end of town as a more steep. It is flat and then it goes up steeper. Whereas
Oh yeah.
Prospect, because that was one thing I was reading. So Jackson was really concerned because Prospect Hill really isn't much of a hill. It's only a little bit higher in elevation, especially in certain spots of it. So he was concerned that if a big attack came, if Reynolds had pushed his whole corps forward, or the the left grand wing as a whole had kind of gone forward, things could have ended up a lot different. They would
Oh,
have
they could
rolled
have.
over that.
They could have
Uh,
easily rolled over that, and that's the thing. And we don't see that when we pull up in the parking lot of Slaughter Pen Farm.
no,
You
you
look out on
don't.
this field, and you're just like, okay, it's a flat field. What is this? And then you get down to the railroad, and you're like, oh,
Well, and people don't think that okay, well, that's a flat field. There is no place to hide there. You're walking across that. That is the proverbial you know battlefield where troops are walking towards each other, flat, rolling, open terrain. That's like Revolutionary War battlefield type thing. It's not especially around here. You think about all the battlefields, the 4 battlefields in the area. That's the only one that is remotely open,
yeah,
other than probably where Jackson broke out on the 11 Corps flank for Chancellorsville. That's the only other open area per se, when in relatively speaking. But obviously, that's heavily rolling terrain.
hmm,
But I mean, you put like the Confederates where they had their batteries in place. They were shooting over the top of those railroad tracks. The guns were, so they were in defilade, so that you could literally only see the tube of the gun, um, because they used the terrain to their advantage, especially on the left side, more towards where Hood was located.
right.
Those batteries on that end of the Slaughter Pens field were very well in place, in my
Yeah, they had
opinion.
a relentless fire on those Union troops that
Yep.
are coming. Well, I know it is almost time for you to get out of here. We're pushing 10:40. We've almost made an hour here tonight. If you want to push for the full hour, we got 10 minutes left, so you're more than welcome to. But I know you want to get out of
Yeah,
here
we
and
can.
take your
We
time.
can. We're at that point
Might
anyway.
as well. We're at 9 minutes left, so let's just make a whole hour out of this episode.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I really want to highlight our visit to Fredericksburg because that it to me one of the things that I've noticed when I go to these battlefields, especially, alone, I almost get the same experience when I'm by myself because I'm going over the same ground and I may be getting a different story, but it's always better in a way
Oh
to
yeah.
have somebody with you when you're doing this because the perspectives change. I learn something new more so when I have a friend with me on those battlefields and we can start talking because the ideology that comes out of that, the
Mhm.
different conversations that come out of that, the perceptions that come out of that changes the way I feel about Fredericksburg. And because of our walk and the walks subsequently that I've done afterwards, even just alone, I always look back to what we did. And we went to parts of Fredericksburg I've never been to before,
Yeah.
that I've never
Same here.
walked.
I'd never been down that end. I've done the
No.
wall.
I've driven past it, and I've done that many times. I've had some, I'm a 26-year-old, so ignore this, but I've had some fun times walking back and not realizing where the fuck I was. I'm just like, okay, I've had a few beers at the bar downtown and I'm walking this way. Cool. But I wasn't putting, one and one together. I wasn't
Yeah.
really thinking, hey, this is the actual the swale,
You
the
know.
900-yard plane. This is a Confederate position. This is a Union position. I'm passing that dentistry almost every day into work, damn it, and I don't notice that this is the Herkamp Tannery.
Yeah.
I didn't know, George Herkamp had so many innovations that he brought. So it goes beyond the Civil War too. So we're walking and learning so many different things that just never resonated to me before.
Well,
And
you know
our
what you
walk
guys need to
just
do.
opened my eyes.
You know what you guys need to do when you do your tour and you're walking around. You've seen what's it, Ghostbusters 2. You know how
Yes. Is that where the
they open.
Titanic pulls into New York Harbor and the
Yeah,
Michelin
pretty
Man?
much.
Yeah. Okay. Not what
But
is it? Stay
so
Puft
they
Marshmallow Man. Yeah, that's right.
they no, not that was the first one. No, it's the one
Hmm.
with the slime, and they go down into the sewers.
Okay.
Well,
Oh yeah, we
what
did
you
do
need
that.
to do is I'll get you a hook thing. You can pop a manhole cover and let Darren jump down into the um
The canal. We
the
could throw
canal.
his tea in there. We could throw the
Since
tea
we
near
were
the yeah.
walking
Let's
and
just throw tea down there. That works.
yeah, I mean, get some pictures of what it still looks like. I would bet there's got to be fragments and bullets and stuff down in that because
Oh, I
you
believe
they
it.
were I did it wasn't like that's not like something that they would
Now
clean
there are
up.
tunnels under the city of Fredericksburg. If I could ever find the person to contact to show me some of these, that would be awesome.
I
No, I
would
mean I'm
not
not even
want to
kidding. Like
go
you
in
could
a
walk into some of these older buildings, and they have brick walkways underneath the city in places. And I guarantee you, some of that runs into the canal too. I
oh,
wouldn't
I'm
know
sure.
because I haven't had the opportunity. I just recently came across some of these videos of some of the city planners and guys on city council that have gone through these tunnels. And I have a friend, coincidentally, my boss actually at school, is on city council. So now that I just, this is formulating as we're talking, I'm like, I may have a contact that, hey, doctor, can you show me the tunnels of Fredericksburg?
You get
Because
him up in the
cameras
bell
out.
tower and you get him
Hey,
down
we
in the
may
sewer.
actually have that solidified as
I
of
heard that.
today.
I was cracking
Yeah,
up.
no, and today I got an answer back that says, sure, let us know. So we're working on figuring out the
That would be
parameters.
cool.
I don't need a waiver. I thought I was going to need one, but they're sort of
I'm
trusting the
sure they're
church.
open for
But I
semi.
think that there's going to have to be some pluggings of a church, and I'm going to have to find a way to do that,
Oh, I mean,
in
historic.
a
That's
way.
when you.
Yeah.
So what you do is you film from the steeple of the historic church towards Prospect Hill, towards Marie's Heights, the view that the Union would have been using to look out onto the battlefield.
Yeah, well, we have Confederates using it too upon the
Yep.
arrival of the Union forces. And, if we're looking at 159 years ago to the day, they're right along Falmouth right now. There are some very interesting stories that are taking place. We have Alabamians taking a boat over to Falmouth, which I talked about last podcast. That they actually take a boat over to Falmouth in the middle of the river to meet Union soldiers in the middle of the Rappahannock, and are initially trading coffee, tobacco,
Yeah.
newspapers, yada yada yada. But this is all happening before the deadly Battle of Fredericksburg that's
Yeah.
inevitably taking
And
place
then
in
after, I mean,
1862.
well, and it all depends. The book I'm reading now talks about that some. A lot of times, those types of trading things would be when an officer wasn't around because they were
Mm-hmm.
not a lot. They were told don't allow the soldiers to um,
Fraternize with each other.
fraternize with each other. Exactly.
And I saw a painting today, and someone posted it on one of the pages where it was a painting of Confederates being baptized in a river, and there was a line of Union soldiers across the river staring at them and guns in hand. And people are like, "Oh, this is just fantasy." And I was like, "Actually, no, it's
Probably
not.
accurate.
This is stupid accurate because this was a very prevalent thing in the Civil War. It may not have happened as the paintings depicted, so there is a allure of fantasy to the picture, but this was very prominent along the banks of the Rappahannock River on both Falmouth and Fredericksburg sides in 1862 and the winter of 1863. This is not uncommon. So to say that this is fantasy to me is bullshit because I think that this happened, and I'm not idealizing Confederates. I'm
Well,
not
it may
idealizing
not have
Union either.
happened
It's
perfectly that way, but
no,
that kind of stuff happened.
it
That's
did, and we have notation of that. And I think
yeah.
and you and I talked about this the other day when we talked about the American Civil War really being one of those last wars where brother was fighting brother. At least in the United States aspect, civil wars happen in many different countries all the time, even into
Well,
today's
if you
world in
think
the
about it, that was
21st
our
century.
only war. I mean, you could
You
say
could look at American Revolution and say
yes
loyalists versus
with the
that, but
Tories and the
this is
and
once
the
the country's been united,
yeah.
created, and established, and now we're split, and now it's different. It is a very different war, and I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
glad that you
Look at
echoed that with me because you were just like, God, there's so much to talk about when it comes to that because we don't ever really consider
oh
the
yeah.
just
When
a
you were
line
there,
of states would separate,
when
the
you and Darren were talking about just the mindset and the psychology and all that, and I was like, well, and that's why I was shooting you those messages because, like for
Well, I ate
example,
them up. I was loving them too. I was asleep when I
um,
got the first few, but it didn't wake me up by any means. But when I saw them and I woke, I was like, "Oh my god,
um,
this is great."
a lot, unless you kind of been in the military, you don't realize it that the military, because again, like I was telling you, no sane human being wants to kill another human being.
Yeah,
But
and the first straight off, like you were
but
so right in that.
if you're able to tie certain things to it,
No,
uh,
well, thank you.
pa-
Seriously,
thanks for
thank
being
you.
on.
Yeah, thank you.
Patriotism. If you're able to dehumanize the enemy, and you look at every war that from every country, they always try and dehumanize the enemy.
And I think you're military, so you have a better grasp of that than I did. I learned that just a few years ago, actually, when I started initially studying Vietnam. I looked at the names that they gave some of the enemy
Oh
when it
yeah.
came to Vietnam, and I'm not going to repeat them just because I don't know who's watching. I don't want to offend anyone, but like seriously, I learned some of the names that the Marines, the Army, but and initially all those came from the World War II. We look at Okinawa being the
Yeah.
originator of some of the
Oh,
slurs that were
and
used by
every
Marines and
war
Army.
has been like that. Like you look at World
Sure.
War One, the Hun, the Germans. Um, every war
Ooh,
is like
thank you,
that.
Noel.
The Nazis called the Russians and also like the Jews and all of their undesirables. They were under. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce it, but it was pretty much
But there
the
was a name for it,
undesirables,
right?
and that's how they got their soldiers to
I mean, we
do
had
some of those
some of
horrible acts that
humans were called contraband in the Civil War.
yeah.
Not that they were
Um,
enemies to the people that were calling him contraband, but still,
well,
there's a
yeah,
name,
and
there's
the
a
Civil
derivative.
War,
Yeah,
people don't realize it,
rebels.
but hey, Johnny Reb, oh, those Yank invaders, just little things. Now, and they're talking about it in the book, but there was more hate from the southern side to the northern soldiers, I think, than the northern soldiers to the Confederates. But I mean, there is still hate between both. Not there's a dehumanizing of the enemy, even though they're
Yep.
2 years before they were American citizens. It's not that way, and just little things. you look at Jackson talking about running up the black flag.
Mm-hmm.
That's total.
Yeah, it
That's
is. We see that order at Fredericksburg. I actually have a talk about that with Thomas Reed Roots Cobb and
oh
his
nice.
requisition on the Black Flag. He actually asked for that to be instituted on the sunken road because,
Mhm.
little does a lot of people know, and I'll spoil just a quick thing. Federal Hill is his paternal grandmother's home.
Hmm.
Isn't that crazy? And the shot that may kill him initially, eventually comes from that ground.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I
it's
see his personal connection. Like,
well,
and that's
he
that's
was a
just
and
huge.
if I remember correctly, Cobb was a hardcore secessionist. Um,
Oh, I'm gonna say straight up, he was a piece of shit.
well, no, no,
he was horrible with that. Yeah,
yeah,
he was
but
he
he was
was
a hardcore,
adamant,
and there was,
anti-black too. He was
yeah, I mean,
openly like just
well, and I was talking to a friend about it the other day. You know, the and it might hurt some people's feelings, but you can't, and me and you talked about, we talked about how slave people, different people perceive how the Civil War was fought over slavery in different ways. And I could, like I say, some of those hardcore lost causers are like, oh no, it wasn't about slavery, it was about this, that, the other thing. Okay, I will concede to you that the war itself may not have been about strictly about slavery. In fact, it wasn't. We know that there were it was focused around that, along with many other things. But there is no one that can argue that the secession of the Confederate secession of the states was not directly related to slavery. I mean, their own articles of secession. Let's discuss. Let's throw out Mississippi and South Carolina. They threw all their trash out in the road for everyone to see. It says this is all about slavery, you know,
right.
and it's so it's
They
one of
write
those.
it themselves. It's hard to argue with that when you see some of the
Yeah,
co-leading
and
authors of the Civil War writing it
and
themselves. It's an
it's like we were
inarguable
talking.
fact.
Those individual soldiers, that individual soldier, he isn't fighting for that slave owner, back in his home state. He's fighting for the guys around him. He's fighting for his unit. He's fighting for what he's been told. In the back of their minds, though, they've got to know, to some extent or another, I'm fighting for that landowner. I'm going out and I'm potentially going to die for that landowner. And
Yeah.
it's been like that with like every war has always had a certain segment of the populace that's fighting, um, who is fighting for the man. I think that's the correct term.
LBJ in Vietnam, buddy.
Vietnam. It was you were fighting for the man.
McNamara and LBJ.
Um, World War II, like for example, the Marine Corps, up until 1944, was an all volunteer force. But because of the casualties and everything, they had to start drafting Marines as well. And the drafting when the active duty guys, um, I'm trying to be politically non-offensive, I guess, Kojak. It does. I mean, you got to look at. There's so many things out there. The
Kojak's
cornerstone
right though. It
speech.
does. If we read who was the book called? Apostles and Disunions, number one, is a good one, and then there's another book that came out recently. I shouldn't say recently, but it's a literal manuscript of all of the speeches, the secession articles, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It proves it, and I've always admitted it in multiple podcast streams, in person, on tours. Before I was able to actually start vigorously studying the Civil War and understanding the aspects of it and everything that really started it, I was what most would consider a lost causer because I was growing up
You
knowing
was
that I had
told
19
stories.
Confederates in my family. I knew only that. I didn't know anything different. And that's a lot of the population today is they don't know anything different because they are
Mhm.
unfortunately taught the same thing. So, yourself, myself, the guys that are in this organization, the Unfiltered Historian, and other these wonderful groups that are out there that teach this, whether it be a podcast, a park service, whatever it might be, we're not revisionists. We're
No,
not. We're not. Republican hacks, leftist hacks, whatever you want to call us. That's what we could call. I get thrown so many names. You've seen it on Facebook, obviously recently. My
yeah,
author is calling me this shit. Like, and they're just like openly throwing these names out there because I disagree with something they
say
think.
straight up, fuck that guy.
Yeah, like that was bullshit. And I'm like, well, first of all, like I openly admit my fault in that. And it's not even that it's my fault. I knew that it was the error of what I was brought up on. It was what I was taught, but I didn't have anyone telling me different. And when they openly told me different, instead of cussing them out and calling them a different name or belittling their situation, I was like, okay, as a historian, it's my job to try to now break down and understand what you just told me and fact check it. So I did. And I'm like, fuck, you're right. Like, this is about slavery. Your
Well,
states' rights is slavery. There's
oh
no
yeah,
argument
yeah. You
against
can't
that. You know what
say
I mean? Like,
because, again, we talked about this.
mm-hmm.
Okay, what state right were they fighting for? What
To
name
own
one of them?
slaves. Yeah, and they're like,
You can't say
and they don't
yeah,
want to say it. It's not even that they don't. It's they don't want to because they realize like it's that
yeah,
moment that
and
that one argument should be enough to break it. Because it was for me. It was like shit. What was their state rate? Taxation? No.
and there's a
What were
difference.
you being taxed on?
Yeah,
What is the economically based institution you're being taxed on? You're
yeah,
being taxed on fucking King Cotton. What is King Cotton? King Cotton is slavery.
yeah.
It's night and day. It's not an
The
argument.
one
It is
the
clear.
one thing that and I know like the ECW guys got to go through it a lot is you want to have a open discussion without side turning you off. Like on Facebook, I'm on quite a few Civil War groups, and there's one about Shelby Foote, and someone will say something about
Well, there's union
oh
extremism too. I saw it today, and I even commented just cause annoyance because there's a fellow that goes on a lot of these posts and will continuously just, I love watching Confederates die. Confederates are shit. Ha! Confederate tears make
yeah,
me
there's no
happy.
need for that
No, you're a just
because
causer. You're no better than a lost
yeah,
causer, and you're not taken
exactly.
serious because you're a just cause. The only thing you're doing right now is diminishing the other side. Now, I'm not saying to
So
support them. I'm not directly supporting that, but when you open your mouth and you say something as derogative as that about a man dying or about somebody losing their
mhm.
division,
Oh yeah,
you aren't going to be taken serious, my friend. And maybe we're not taken serious, and I don't care whether you take it serious or
well,
not. That's not
so
what I'm getting at.
I was just
But it's
posting
just,
on one, and
that shit
this
is
guy's calling
annoying.
everyone that disagrees with him neo-Marxist, and I'm going, it's almost like that scene from Princess Bride. I, I don't think you know what that means. That word, I don't think you know what that means because
No, and
he's
that's the thing.
calling
They
people
don't.
because. And now this guy was posting all kinds of like hardcore lost cause stuff, and I'm like, really, you're calling people that disagree with you Marxists? How?
Right. And
I'm like,
that's actually a
Marxism is
reason
a
I haven't let
mental
his
defense.
videos. They actually submitted videos to me to put on here, but because of the derogative comments, because of the clear
And
and
it does. It
present
goes both ways.
biasness,
Both
it
sides.
does. It is a both sides problem. You know what I mean? And when I take it, I take a step back, and I've never identified with Union or Confederate because let's face the facts. What year do we live in? We live in 2021. We are not either of them.
We
I have
don't.
ancestors that served on both sides. Sure, I should in his world when he's a just causer and when you're showing this just cause stuff. I'm saying his. It could be him or her. It doesn't matter who you are. You do
Yeah.
this because you're identifying with this cause. I'm not slamming. I'm not laughing at Confederates getting killed. I'm not laughing at Union soldiers getting killed because it's not fucking funny.
No.
These are men dying for something they believe in, and that itself, right or wrong, the fact that these men had the stones to go and fight for something that they believed in, again, right or wrong, and I look at that with any soldier who bears an arm, whether they're right or wrong, they're still willing to put down their life for something that they truly believe in. And I
Yeah.
think that notion itself should be respected. You don't
Yes.
have to respect the cause. You don't have to respect what they're doing. I'm not saying going and rooting for the Taliban. But by any means, I'm not saying that because I don't agree
We
with
might
fucking
have
shit.
issues.
Very much so. I'd have issues with myself. I'm wearing an Americana hoodie, man. Like, there's no way. But I do take a step back and like people are fighting for what they believe in.
Yeah. Oh,
That in itself is a respect, whether we're trying to kill you or not for believing what you believe in.
I I see.
And it's
I
hard.
I will say I disagree a little bit there because having fought
Extremism is bad.
extremists
I don't agree, but
in Iraq.
unionists were extreme. There were
Yeah.
unionist extremists. There were Confederate
Yeah.
extremists.
Oh, you look at bloody Kansas and Missouri.
Absolutely. And there's a way again. I respect the notion of standing up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
I don't respect slaughtering innocent people.
See, that's why I have like
I
in
don't.
Iraq,
Right.
we I'll keep it
No, it's okay, dude.
not
It's
not
unfiltered
bloody, but
historian. It's unfiltered
so
historian. You're good.
just north of our combat outpost was a village, and there was we knew there was insurgents that lived in and around the area, but we tried to not uh, alienate the people. Well, one day uh, there was a wedding going on in that village. Well, the insurgents came down to the village, rolled up, grabbed the groom, grabbed his brother, and in front of the whole village, because that's a big thing, cut their damn heads off. People bring the bodies down to our Iraqi soldiers and are like, hey, they just did this. And, all of us are like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do.
That's kind of why I said it was circumstantial because I can't justify that.
Yeah.
There's no justification to that.
No.
But when we talk about the American
Well,
Civil War,
I,
I mean,
I
it's not any better because you're holding a human life in bondage. So there's an extremism, I
oh,
think, at
yeah.
the same time. But it is still the constant like laughing at defeating of a brigade or this just like ah ha ha Confederates die
Well,
blah blah blah. And I see it from specific people all the time that
like I
just
always
I
laugh
can't
at,
entertain them
I
because
joke
to me they're
around.
extremists in their own right for saying that.
Well, and like I can joke with, again, my buddy Doug, who loves the Third Corps and how they went out where they should never have gone and
I
got
love
punched
Dan
in the
Sickles
face.
too. I can't lie. I'm a
But
Dan
on the
Sickles
other
sympathy.
hand, I can laugh at you know some of the brigades that from Pickett's that from the Pickett, Pettigrew, and Tremble attack that
Thank you for
kind of
saying
came
that, by the
up
way.
over the rise and the Union artillery that was over towards the Round Tops. All of a sudden, that they didn't know was there. All of a sudden, is shooting down their flank. Well, hey, you're gonna have a bad day, guys. You know, I don't get personal with it, but
We see how these conversations go, dude. We're at 11 o'clock and we're
yeah,
still
we're gonna
going.
have to call it because I
Yeah,
gotta
we
run.
are. So if you want to just for like 5 or 10 minutes, stick with me once we end up after the live. I always do a live talk with whoever I'm with on the show just to like recap really quickly. And that's not live. That is our real unfiltered moment just to recap and revisit what we just talked about. So I'll go ahead and end it there and call it a night because this was a fantastic show. We're an hour and 14 minutes in. This was a standard unfiltered conversation, and tonight was fucking incredible. I love these talks, and I love that you guys engage.
I
Kojak
would want
especially,
to do
dude. Like
more of them, but you do them on like Wednesday nights sometimes and
I
Saturday
know
nights.
they're just
Saturday
so
nights
random.
is I'm
When are you
playing.
free again? Because I have the rest of this week. I'm off at like 3:30. Even tomorrow, I'm off at 3:30 tomorrow. So if you
I'm
want to
usually
talk on and
like
shoot some shit tomorrow afternoon, I mean, I'm all for it.
the only nights I'm online. Like I play Scourge of War Wednesday nights and
So
Saturday nights.
what are you doing between like the hours of like 4:30 and 6 o'clock tomorrow?
I'll be at home having started my day off for. But yeah,
Me too. I have a day
well,
off. I have a day off Thursday. So
why why not?
Kojak is at Disney for the next 3 days. Like
Nice.
you lucky guy.
Well, we'll have to talk offline. We might just have to go walk around a battlefield or something tomorrow.
I
Well,
get
yeah,
off at 3:30, and my car can take me straight to Fredericksburg. So that's
yeah.
we don't have to talk offline. I have this and I have a microphone. We could just boop. Wow, we're at the sunken road.
Well, yeah,
Holy
no, no. I
crap.
mean, like I'm talking. We'll talk about when we get off here.
Yeah, all right, let's do that. Let me go
Okay.
ahead and end this for our guys here. Everybody that is joining tonight, thank you so much, dude. Awesome debut on the page. I cannot wait to have you do this more. And I like Darren and I do this on the weekends too. So if you want to pop on a weekend with me
Yeah.
and Darren and have a three-way conversation, I mean, shit. I can only imagine how much tea
Well,
would
that'll
be
be
drinking in the
fun.
harbor
That'll be
from
a
that
good time.
conversation. I've got a whole Lipton tea box literally unsealed for when he comes here because I'm just going to flip it upside down and throw it in the harbor when he gets here. And that's the thing. We love the banter. Like we don't get offended. We're not thin
Yeah.
skinned by any means. We do this for fun because that's what makes the unfiltered a story and the unfiltered. And that's what our audience we stick to that for a reason because that's what people want to hear. Sometimes somebody wants to hear just the fun behind it too. We don't
Yeah.
want to be all morbid and sad the entire show. We
No,
want to
no.
have fun, guys. It has been a fantastic hour and a half almost. Me and Daryl will correspond and figure out what tomorrow's show is going to be because now I think tomorrow might be a thing. Guys, thank you all so much again for joining. Daryl,
Take
thank you
care.
for being a part of this group. I'm so happy to have you a part of it. We'll see
Okay.
you all tomorrow.